Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name's Will Craig. I'm the Educational Director at Partners with Parents, and I'm also the Director of Educational Program at the Handel Group. You can find us on our respective websites, partnerswithparents.com and handelgroup.com. I'm here to talk about the terrible impact of new technology. And there's a fairly recent historical event you might not know about. You probably do. There's a gun manufacturer named Remington, and they identified a new product, really a new weapon, that they recognized was going to have a major impact on world history. And they started manufacturing it in 1874. It was a typewriter. Completely changed the world, and it was not well received at all. It was met with a lot of suspicion. It was assumed right away that typewriters were going to spread germs, both by touching the letters on the keypads, and even the documents felt strange to people. Books, of course, had been published, but being able to produce your own documents and hand them over to other people, there was a certain impersonal quality which was really met with a great deal of aversion by the general populace. Does that sound familiar at all for anybody? It was a little bit too impersonal. It was met with suspicion. The problem with new technologies is that they bring up fear for us, of course, and we've had a couple of speakers talk about that earlier today. I really loved the way Adam said it a couple of speakers ago. When we feel fear, being smart grown-ups, we make up a lot of excuses, like, oh, well, that's going to spread germs. Queen Victoria made the response of adding to her staff an assistant personal secretary whose full-time job was to take her letters and memoranda and transcribe them into longhand so that she would never have to read a typewritten letter. Raise your hand if you can identify somebody in your life who is a little bit like Queen Victoria, is a little bit Victorian about their relationship with new technologies today in your life. Yeah. And of course, one of her contemporaries who went charging right after this new invention was Samuel Clemens. Mark Twain was the first person to submit a written manuscript that was typewritten. And after researching a couple of resources, it remained unclear to me whether that was Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. But it's inspiring to me to know who went after it first. 4 years later, in 1878, the Department of Agriculture adopted typewriters. It was kind of controversial. The Department of State did not adopt typewriters until the year 1900, 22 years later. An entire generation of people later. And even then, the official description was it was a necessary evil. So, the terrible impact of new technologies is that we've got fear. We make up excuses. It turns us into liars. It's going to give us germs. What? It doesn't give us germs. So, fear stops us from telling the truth. Now, shifting gears into our field, education, we are always chasing new technologies. It's our job to maintain a standard so that our kids can be up to date with technology and be ready for their marketplace. But the problem is we're always chasing an expiring standard. We're training our kids in a standard that is just starting to be antiquated. I myself chose home ec instead of typewriting in my 8th grade year because I already had a computer at home. I wasn't going to take typing. So the challenge for us is to stop training for expiring standards and tell the truth. And as I sat in the audience earlier, I was thinking about one of the key moments for me as an educator when I really cut my teeth as an educator, and some of you may identify with this, when I said to my students, oh, I don't know about that, but we're going to find out, as opposed to pretend that I had all the answers and that it was my responsibility to transmit them, as if they could be passive receptacles. Raise your hand if you ever had that moment where you knew you were a fantastic teacher because you didn't know you had the answer, but that you were going to work collaboratively with your students to find the answer. Raise your hand if you've had that kind of experience. Yeah, thanks. So as teachers, tutors, coaches, principals, leaders, it's our responsibility to acknowledge, to tell the truth, that we can't prepare you for the future. Mark Ecko earlier was calling it andragogy. You can only prepare yourself for the future. It's our responsibility as teachers to have our students engaging with what's the truth. Well, what's the truth for you? Okay, now, the marketplace, like the Department of Agriculture in 1878 demonstrated for us, the marketplace moves faster than the Department of State, than the Department of Education. Agriculture had to update because it was the engine of commerce of its day. It would have been absurd for them not to adopt this new technology, making all of their office staff able to publish documents independently, instantaneously. It was a phenomenal opportunity for them. So it's our responsibility, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, everybody, to get out of the way and let our charges and help our charges find the way into the marketplace faster and engage with the technologies of that marketplace as they emerge, as fast as they emerge. The young people know it better than their teachers. It's always the case with every generation. Samuel Clemens knew better than Queen Victoria. Now, of course, school is not irrelevant, right? We're picking up skills. I don't use algebra every day, but I do figure things out mathematically in my life. But it requires application. It rarely is applicable in our lives in the same way we've received our training. And that's where your confidence comes from. That's where your competence comes from. It requires application. It requires your bravery. School is not really about technology. It's about bravery. So I want to ask you, raise your hand if you've got a bachelor's degree. Raise your hand if you've got a master's degree. Raise your hand if you've got a doctorate. Raise your hand if you've got multiple doctorates. Anybody? I know some people who like to have that opportunity. Now raise your hand if you can remember a time when specifically there was something that a data point that you remembered from school and then you really needed it in your professional life. Like you remembered something from your schooling and then you used it in your regular professional life. Okay. Raise your hand if you can remember a time when you took something that was kind of relevant to school from your schooling. You took something from your schooling and then you applied it in a new way to solve some problem of your professional life. I've had that experience a lot more often, and I think I saw more hands. I certainly hope so. That was my point. So the application of our knowledge, the brave application of our knowledge, when we're telling the truth about what we're doing and how we're applying who we are to the problems of our day, that's your confidence, that's your bravery. I got an email from a parent this morning who was the mom of a preschool that I had. I recently was operating a small preschool business. And she just, out of the blue today, sent me an email that is awfully relevant to my topic. And what she said was, just thanks so much for everything you did for my child. She's now at a new school, and she loves it there. And this is a child who, on her first several times being dropped off with me, was terrified. She was a clinger. She was screaming and crying and was not going to let go of Mom. And all I did, the only thing I did for this little kid, was teach her how to be brave. And it was the most important component of her early life. It wasn't letter identification. It wasn't counting. It wasn't even collaborating with the other preschoolers. It was, I know you're scared, but I'm here with you, and you can be brave, and this is going to be okay. She tells her mom that she misses me still. And I think that's really the measurement of our success as educators, is when our students say, wow, I really remember the life lesson that I got from that teacher. Okay, so I'm much less interested in teaching my students. I've done it, right? And I think all of you have in your different ways. I've taught students what a gerund is. We've done the capitals. But I'm much more interested in students having clarity about who am I? What do I like? In a way that they can articulate. So the challenge for us as educators is to stop pretending, stop the lie that all these individuals have the same needs, that education serves the same purpose for them, because it doesn't. They're not going to have the same outcomes and applications of their education. So we want them to be themselves. Our educational purpose is to make sure that they can announce with poise, with self-knowledge, to anybody who wants to hear it, who they are. What's your cutting edge? Well, my cutting edge is this. Here's what I'm learning about. And you've all met them. You've met the 10-year-old, the 5th grader, who can answer that question. And you've met some of them who can't. And you've met the senior in high school who can answer that question. And you've met some of them who can't. It's our responsibility to make sure that they can. Facebook, Twitter, those technologies are going to be phased out, just like the typewriter. But we will maintain our responsibility to our charges, to our young, to answer that question. And if there is no call for them to answer, they can generate it themselves. They're preparing for their place in the market. Okay, so Twitter and Facebook provide us with a couple of opportunities, right? One, we all know, you can drive and broadcast who you are. I'm on a mission, I've got a dream, here's what it is, everybody, listen to me. That's the obvious one. The second is, when you tell the truth like that, the world around you will hold you to account for it. You're telling people, this is who I am. If you see me off point, slap me upside my head. Get me back on track. Profound benefit of our transparency and of our publicity. So fear can't be a stopping point for telling the truth. We have to speak up. We have to train our kids to speak up, to know how to say what's going on for them. So your job as a teacher or a coach or a tutor or a principal, mom, dad, is to train the kids around you to be Samuel Clemens, not to be Arthur Bigg, the personal secretary of Queen Victoria, whose job was to transcribe all of her memoranda into longhand. That's what we're here for. Does anybody have a truth that they want to mention? Or a question? Or a challenge? Yeah.
In Spanish, there's an expression, solo los borrachos y los niños hablar la verdad.
Solo los borrachos y los niños hablar la verdad. Only the drunks and the kids are speaking the truth. Yeah. Love it.
One more. In the French Revolution, Robespierre, I believe, said, it's always misquoted, ignorance is bliss when it would be folly to be wise.
French Revolution.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
People usually stop the quote right there. When it would be folly to be wise, because if
When it would be folly to be wise.
you speak out, you lose your head.
Right.
The other truth that hasn't been sounded very often today is the fact that social media is being used by kids to force other kids to take on personas that are not consistent with who those kids are. That it's not cyberbullying, it is cyber crowd leading to a place where people don't want to go, but they can't get off that train. And if they get off that train, they get slapped socially on the side of their head. And we haven't really today been discussing the way in which cyber media is affecting socialization among kids in schools.
That's right. So the kids need our guidance in the application of telling the truth, so that they aren't pigeonholed and railroaded into situations that they're not prepared for. We need to prepare them for those. Yeah, thank you. 10 seconds. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.